afternoon. Happy Saturday. Wow. Welcome to Our World, Our Power show here with Lady Pauline and my co host, Mr. Glenn Greenwich, the Honorable Mayor of Sutton Boulevard. We have a special guest today. Who do we have on today, Glenn?
We have Latoya Benjamin, who is an economic development specialist. She is one of the I'm going to say this, one of the genius people inside of the economic development conversation here in Southeast Queens. She is very proactive, innovative, and back from Africa not too long ago, and is now with us today. She's actually up in Albany for the Black and Puerto Rican Caucus, and she's doing some networking up there. Welcome to the show, Latoya Benjamin.
Thank you. Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Pauline, for having me. Happy Saturday,
Yes.
guys.
Uh, can you hear us and see us okay?
I can hear and see you. Okay.
Okay, that's great. That's
Very
right.
good, very good. So let's start off. I want to hear a little bit about Africa. So what had you be in Africa and yeah. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I was invited to Africa by a friend of mine. They were hosting a conference that was recognizing the 100-year anniversary of Black Wall Street. And met with a lot of Pan-Africanists throughout the country that was really interested in the Black Wall Street model in terms of cooperative economics. And what the thought process was, they believed that if Black Wall Street had not been burnt down and models like it throughout history have not been destroyed, then eventually the diaspora would have developed and came back to industrialize the continent. So they're looking at Black Wall Street as a model for the African people to lead in the industrialization of Africa. And so I was there for that conversation.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So what they're looking at is connecting with us in terms of economic development and building some of those skill sets. Now now we're talking about a lot about the well, actually, when you think about it, the economic supply chain is all part of that conversation in terms of being able to bridge the gap between Africa and the U.S. and of course, New York being one of the prominent places to be able to do business. Um, so tonight the conversation is really about economic development in COVID environment. So uh, say a little bit more about the what you see as the potential connection um, that the supply chain is doing inside of the conversation with Africa.
Yeah, what was really interesting, it was my first time in my lifetime in the continent. And I just had an amazing experience looking at economic development, urban development, and community development from that global perspective, right? And just being in Africa and just seeing all of the different cultures that are there doing business, China and India, and then just even what's happening with the modernization of Africa, there's just tremendous opportunity. One of the things that I learned being there in East Africa was that Africa loses over $300 billion in capital flight just off of the natural resources on the land. They don't really benefit off the natural resources. A lot of businesses and multinational corporations partake in what is termed as the extraction industry, right? There was articles, that talked about companies like Apple that participate or just is really using child mining to extract some of the resources that we use for our phones and different materials. So not capitalism in a negative perspective, but the natural resources that we use for products and services, goods and services, are in Africa, right? And so specifically in East Africa, and I'm talking about the country of Uganda, they have a development plan to make the country a middle class economy, in the next 10 years. And some of the natural resources that they have is coffee, tea, corn, and I was sharing earlier with the team is the fish. You know, some of the best fish that I've ever tasted. And so, it's just interesting because when we think about the global supply chain, I think it's an awesome opportunity to start having more conversations around how businesses can get more involved in the global supply chain, right? How can more businesses, specifically businesses within the diaspora, can get involved within the extraction industry? And if there's not a particular process for us to be involved, then we should start having more of those conversations. And what's the really exciting part about being here in Southeast Queens in our community is because we have JFK, of course, right in our backyard. We have the JFK IBID, which really oversees the air cargo area. So when we think about the global supply chain industry, it's literally in the backyard of Southeast Queens.
So, Latoya, you mentioned a couple of industries. So you talked about the mining industry, and of course, diamonds are also part of that big extraction. What other natural resources have they talked about, and and is wood and uh, wood and maybe even steel something that they produce, or is easily accessible? I would think wood, for example, might be one of those areas.
That's a very good question. I'm not sure. I'll have to like check out that report again. But one of the things that I thought was really a major industry to tap into was the agriculture industry. More than 60% of Uganda has a great they have great soil, right? So more than 80% of the market is an agricultural market, but only less than 40% is actually being utilized. So, I can't speak for, steel and lumber per se at this point, but in terms of, food, which as we see, we're hearing, the how the global supply chain is being disrupted with the war taking place between Russia and Ukraine. There's reports coming out that there will be a food shortage because of this. I think agriculture is a really important industry that we should start taking serious.
One of the things that comes to mind is that your college does have an export import degree, as far as I
Interesting.
understand, and I think that that would certainly be one of the areas for us to pursue and develop, and to be able to develop the student body in terms of opportunities. In fact, I believe Harry Wells, prior to coming on board at your college, was did export and import, and from Africa in particular. So definitely some resources to tap into.
Yeah, that's it's interesting because I did speak to Harry about it. He did share about how he was going back and forth to Africa at one particular point, and he did have some interest in like revisiting those type of programs.
Absolutely.
How would Southeast Jamaica benefit from the program?
Man, I mean, how would we not, right? I think one, it would allow us to expand more into an industry that we're not necessarily tapped into. Um, you know, Specifically in terms of like the local community, and I think we have a great opportunity because with all of the modernization and inclusion efforts that's taking place at the local, state, and federal level, it wouldn't hurt to further expand this conversation to the global supply chain market.
Mm,
And how would it not? I mean, imagine. Let's just imagine for a second if we could. Get even 1% of our market, 1% of our entrepreneurs, 1% of our business owners, and really help them tap into this global supply chain market, right? Let's think about like our restaurants, for example. How much revenue will restaurants benefit if we get better fruits and vegetables from farms in developing countries, right? I can see that adding to their profit margin. And not just fruits and vegetables, but just other, products and services, goods and resources that are out there. We can just completely reimagine how we get our products and services for our businesses and what business actually looks like in our particular market.
okay. Because as of right now, I can see from our market, The meat's going up very expensive over here right now, and I guess it's because of what's happening over in Russia. The economy is just everything is up, 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 up. So if people had, I guess, their own farming situation over here, that would benefit us over here. So we wouldn't have to necessarily rely on other countries to to send their products over here.
Well,
Right.
Is
the thing that I'm looking at is if we could get a cheaper end product from Africa and cuddle out the middle person, and we could actually have it directly shipped straight to JFK and then distributed in local communities. Now we're talking about really being able to leverage the supply chain and discover other supply chains that may be out there available. I mean, we start with agriculture and then begin to discover some of the other pieces that could impact our local economy here. Yeah, go ahead, Latoya.
Yeah, and how amazing is that? And then not only are we tapping into better products, better resources at perhaps a lower cost, but think about it from a global scale. We're even providing better job opportunities for developing countries. So is one of the major reasons, fortunately or unfortunately, why some businesses go overseas to open up factories is because the cost of labor is so cheap. So that can also be an added revenue stream for our businesses. And it's not to say that we'll do bad business. Of course, we want to, ensure that people have proper working conditions and that they're being paid fairly. But of course, it would still be less than, what, the labor force, the cost of the labor force would be less than what it is here in America. And that's another leverage.
Latoya, what made you get involved in this particular field? What
Interesting.
inspired you?
I wanted to be a model when I was a kid. I don't know how I got here. No,
Well,
it's really just being born and raised in Southeast Queens, and just being able to see a lot of things. I grew up. My parents, split when I was, young, and I saw two aspects of Black America, so to speak. My mom, we were, kind of considered, I guess, lower income, and my dad was like upper middle income, and so I saw two different, right, in the same community, right, and I saw where I just always grew up asking questions like, why does Daddy's supermarket have better fruits and vegetables than ours? And we grew up in Jamaica, and he owned the house in St. Albans, so we're not talking about two different spaces here, two different boroughs. And so, these are the type of questions that I always grew up asking, and I always wanted to, see more in my community. And so, I went to school and I started studying and traveling. And, I believe that if we had more, economic opportunities, then, the social conditions in urban communities would be a lot better. I don't think that there's anything wrong with us. I don't think there's anything wrong with our children. I believe that we are lacking opportunities that, other communities and cultures are exposed to. So, it's been kind of my calling, and I've kind of made it my mission to ensure that we can create these type of opportunities that I may not necessarily had, and more importantly, it's about creating wealth creation. We're so behind, globally, and I think if we strategize better and we started becoming more innovative, and we would then be able to tap into a lot of the opportunities that's existing, especially now, post COVID and in this new economy.
One of the things that comes to mind is Garveyism and that whole Pan African conversation of economics. And when you look at what's available now, you look at how technology is able to bridge the gap, and we've now got Zoom and some of the other web features that provide us virtual conversations. We can open up some of these conversations that we haven't had the opportunity before. It was cumbersome to talk long distance to somebody. Now, basically, as long as they have an internet connection, we can actually have video conferencing, and I think that would be a big opportunity to pursue um, uh, doing businesses with our African communities. And in the past, people have had sister communities in parts of Africa that have been able to flourish and to cultivate certain kinds of economies. So I think I'm excited at the opportunity that all that COVID has actually provided us inside of being able to connect on a much more global aspect.
But you,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
I agree with what you're saying. But something I want to bring up, Glenn. Do you really feel that this community in Southeast Queens is really ready for it? 100%. It's nice to say we would like to, but are we ready?
Well, it's about business. Business is one of those things where you look at the opportunity, and when the opportunity is available, you have to be ready to jump on it to make it happen. We've got lots and lots of free programs that are encouraging entrepreneurship. We've got certainly the mentors that have done some of this work before, and so it's just a matter of people connecting. As a young person, well, I'm thinking about doing something in Africa. Let me have a conversation with the youth in Africa to find out what they're doing. One of the things that I saw in the Bangladesh community is that they were actually having people make products in their homes. They were making slippers, they were making briefcases, they were making different kinds of clothing, and they were now selling that on the internet. I know that the African ingenuity, yes, they're agriculture, but I'm sure there are other products that could be available or made available utilizing the supply chain.
Okay.
yeah, I mean that, and that's a great question, and you're right, Glenn. Right? So what does it mean for a community to be prepared for an opportunity, right? And hey, listen, maybe a lot of places are not prepared. We're living in a time of innovation. What's innovation? Something new and something different. So who is actually prepared in a time of massive innovation? And you know what's really interesting about that concept? So even with like, I believe, and even I lived out there for 5 months, right? And I had the best Wi-Fi in my apartment. And sometimes the lights go out, and so they have a generator. But the tech industry, I think the tech industry can be further leveraged in developing countries more so than established Western society, because we take for granted the brick and mortar infrastructure that we have here, where in Africa they don't have those type of infrastructures, but what they do have is a cell phone. I use mobile money there. I transferred my dollars into shillings, and everything was on the phone. I mean, so I believe that, and if you look at some of the investments that's been taking place in Africa, the whole fintech industry is just booming out there. I mean, there's more angel investors are investing in black fintechs than ever before. I mean, you guys could definitely look this up. So, technology is booming. And then let's talk about other cultures and other countries that are actually tapping into Africa. I mean, let's think about China, for example. We all know China is growing to be the number one economy and one of the number one superpowers, even over America. How are they able to do that? I mean, look at their Silk Road initiative. They have a fantastic, for what it's worth, they have a great plan, right? And that plan includes Africa. I mean, they're literally building the infrastructure off the East Coast and in different aspects of Africa. So, I mean, were they ready for that opportunity? I don't think they were, but I believe what leadership did in China was that they made themselves ready for the opportunity, and now they're tapped in. And because they made that decision with the Silk Road initiative, they're projected to be the number one economy in the world.
And Africa's not their only target. They're targeted in South America. They're targeted in the Caribbean. When you look at it, China's everywhere. I haven't visited a country in recent times that China isn't building some roads, building some buildings, doing some kind of infrastructure work. And oh, by the way, they're not using the locals. They're actually bringing in the Chinese folks to actually do the work in these particular communities in South America, in the Caribbean, and in
Mm.
Africa as well. So it's interesting how they've leveraged themselves and been able to expand and generate foreign investment that still nurtures their economy.
But you know something too, Glenn? In our culture here and in our education, is these things being taught in our schools, in our colleges, um, to go in this type of direction? What do you think?
They're not necessarily being taught in school, and that's why it's so important for the business community to educate ourselves and each other about what's happening. This whole conversation of video conferencing, that wasn't something that occurred as a mainstay until COVID hit.
That's true. That's very
Some
true.
some people have been utilizing it, but not necessarily a whole lot of people. But because of COVID, you've been forced to change your way of doing things,
Right.
and that's the innovation that Latoya was pointing to. We've got to change in the times. In business today, you've got to adapt, and if you can't adapt, you're gonna be out of business.
Right. You need to sit down, so to speak.
Well,
If you,
sit down and take a look at what's available. Because things are changing. If you're not online right now, you're not making as much money as you could. You're losing some of your potential.
yeah.
It's not all about shaking hands as much as it has been. But I mean, obviously, if you're a brick and mortar, you want people to come into your business. But you can't survive on that alone. Look at the restaurants. The restaurants have had to build outside of their establishments so people can come in. They've had to change their to delivery so that the people were picking up and dropping off, and
That's true,
Uber
Glenn. That's true.
Uber Eats and all of these other.
Right.
Um, yeah, go ahead, Toya.
Yeah, no, like we're living in a time of massive disruption, right? We're talking about economic development and COVID. So we saw what happened during the pandemic. How many jobs, how many careers were just canceled, right? Because of the pandemic, right? And we're not going back, right? We're moving forward. So post pandemic, what does that look like? Like what does the and it's the new economy, it's the fourth industrial revolution. What does that look like? What does and if we talk about, if you've read the book by Robert Kiyosaki, the cash flow quadrant, we know that there's four cash flow quadrants. So the two major industries that was impacted, right, was employees, right? Well, everything was impacted, but the way employee, the labor force looks a lot different now, right? And as we start moving into digitization, a lot of technology is replacing different jobs, right? A lot of businesses are no longer, in need because of what's happening with COVID, right? So what does that look like? I think we need to start talking about these type of things. And then remember, we talk about our culture, specifically the black community, the black diaspora. We are the largest consumers, right? So people oftentimes ask me, Toya, what do you consider economic development? And I don't have a PhD. I'm an economic development practitioner. I'm a practitioner, and it's really about the implementation that gets the results. So I say, well, what is economic development, right? Simple terms. Economic development is the consumption and production of goods and services, the production and consumption of goods and services. So now, when we speak about the diaspora, we're often talking about ourselves as consumers. We are the largest consumers. So many, organizations put out major reports about the state of Black America and how we are the largest consumers, but yet we do have a lot of wealth. So what I'm talking about in terms of us tapping into the global supply chain is for us to be more on the producer end. How can we leverage, be less of consumers and be more of producers? And we cannot be producers if we are not tapped into the global supply chain. We don't have the resources to develop our businesses, and we don't have the natural resources if we're not a part of those industries. And I think we can do a lot better in having representation in the space.
I agree with you, Latoya. One of the big things that we're involved with is our hair.
There
You
you
know,
go.
I mean, my goodness, if we'll see about our hair, our nails before we see about getting something to eat. I'm not trying to be speaking the negative tone, but I just was on Jamaica Avenue the other day, and you see all these hair salons. With you're able to buy this type of hair, you're able to buy that type of hair, and I was just wondering, like, where does this all this hair come from? You know?
Right.
Well,
You know,
well,
it's
well
if
go
I
ahead,
can just say
Latoya.
that,
Go
yeah,
ahead.
real quick, because it's so funny that you brought that up. Because when I was in Africa, like I got my hair done, like it's a big thing, right?
Uh huh.
Because I got my hair done like every week, and the cost of hair. I mean, I got some really good Brazilian weave. Glenn, sorry, you may not know about but I got the best Brazilian weave with the lace closure, and it cost me 60 American dollars.
Oh
Now,
wow.
everybody in right, oh wow, everybody in America knows that here in America that costs you $200 and up.
True.
So, and they have hair factories all over Africa. So I actually that's one of the industries. So hair and food was actually one of the industries that I was trying to tap into. So I've been testing out the model since I got home. But one of the challenges that I found was like actually receiving my package. Like unfortunately, I haven't received the package. So
Oh.
that's something I'll have to do some research into of how the transfer of the goods and have the transfer of goods actually work. Because for some reason I just didn't receive it.
Right.
Well, let me jump in. This is a perfect example, and I actually was thinking about the hair as well, because when you look at eliminating the middle persons, when you think about the how many uh, uh, black and brown people are involved in the supply chain. Now, they're over in India. They cut their hair for free. They clean up their hair. They send it over. It gets shipped. It gets packaged. It gets repackaged. But all along the way, there are no black businesses inside of that supply chain. And so, if we're able to now directly go to Africa and be able to get the supplies or the raw materials there and then have them shipped. So we're now talking about a black shipper and someone that receives the shipment here on this side and then actually does the packaging here and so on and so forth. So now you've involved many more levels of businesses who are now going to get a piece of that action
True.
as it goes from source to end product. And that's the opportunity that is available inside of doing direct communication with the African diaspora.
Okay.
Being able to connect that and to be able to do the supply chain kind of things from soup to nuts.
Okay. We're getting ready to go to a commercial break, and we will be back with this wonderful subject that we're talking about.
Make sure to download the WGJS Radio app from the Apple Store or from the Google Play Store.
what do we do?
You may not be able to plan ahead for a ghost encounter,
Under the dining table now!
but you can plan ahead for natural disasters. Sign up for local weather and emergency alerts.
Maybe it's the apocalypse.
Know your evacuation routes and decide on a safe emergency meeting location.
Here? I know. What a pick Orlando.
Protecting your family is the best plan you can make. So pass the Proton Pack to the next generation and visit ready.gov/plan to get started.
Ever hear the one about the frog? Put a frog in a pot of boiling water and it'll jump right out. But put a frog in a pot of cool water and slowly heat it up, and that frog will boil. It's a lie. But as a metaphor for us and all that we go through as veterans,
real-world experience.
it's a story that rings true. We make excuses for how we feel. We push everything down. We tell ourselves the lie that it's easier to stay in that boiling water, to disconnect. And some days, maybe, it is. But you've never been interested in easy. Reaching out is hard. Do it anyway. You're not alone. You've got this. You are not a frog.
Find resources at va.gov/reach.
When times get dark, we can't see the help that's all around us. Let 211 be your guiding light for mental health and other resources. Call 211 or visit 211.org.
All right, we're back.
Yeah, we're back. Latoya, I was thinking about some business that I do all the time. I deal with a company called Wish, and they send me supplies, like makeup and hair and all different things. But the majority of everything comes from China.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to wait so very, very long to get the items, So sometimes I forget that I had ordered certain things, and I don't know if this is what you're actually talking about as far as the way we're doing business today because of the pandemic now. Even when I order, I do a lot of ordering online. I order Bounty and tissue and all that stuff. Everything is being sent to me. I very seldom even go into a store to buy those type of supplies like I used to. So this is since the pandemic. So we are, as you said, doing business differently. And people are really, they really need to realize that that they are, sometimes we do things and not realize that, we are doing this differently. A lot of people are working from home and they're not really wanting to return back to their offices. They're able to do the same work through working through the internet and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm very interested in what you're having to say.
Yeah, right. And I mean, I think that's going to continue. Like, listen, we don't know when another surge is going to happen, right? We don't know when another lockdown is going to happen. I think, I think this is what the new economy and the fourth economy is going to look like, right? And where you can start doing less with more.
Right.
Or more with less. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And I think that's really what the opportunity is inside economic development. It's listening and it's looking for those opportunities. You've had the luxury of being in Uganda and on the ground, and you're able to meet some people and make some connections and networking. And those are the kinds of things that are going to establish the relationships, because the relationships are really what are going to transform the industries. The relationships are what are going to have the connections that make these things possible. And, therein lies the opportunity to expand. You've got a connection in Southeast Queens. You've now got a connection in Uganda. So based on that, as we travel more, begin to connect with with Africa, with the motherland, with all of its rich resources, we've got opportunities, and we've got to listen for them and look for these opportunities to see how we can leverage them, how we can have them win, and we can win as well. Because I think that that's really what the opportunities are.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with a bigger cushion, I'll just, acknowledge, our congressman,
Yes,
Congressman Meeks. He serves as the chair. If you guys don't know, our congressman serves as the chair of foreign affairs. So when you talk about relationships, we even have a relationship here with our federal representative, who knows all things foreign affairs and could perhaps even give us, even better insight on, how we could further this type of conversation.
Good.
Right.
absolutely.
So it's, I think the opportunity in the sky is the limit. And then to add to that, I think one of the things that I learned, and I'll just share with you guys, I was supposed to be there for a week, in East Africa, and the pandemic hit and they shut down all the airlines. So my 1 week trip turned into a 5 month
Oh, wow.
experience. I had to get an
Really? You was there
apartment.
that
Yeah,
long?
that's how it happened. I couldn't make it up. I was like, God, what are you doing to me? But in any event, what I learned from being there and being on the ground is that, these developing countries want the diaspora to come back. One of the philosophies that they had is that one of the advantages that the diaspora has is that we did grow up in Western society. And some of the things that we take for granted that developing countries don't really fully understand is capitalism, right? They don't understand capitalism as a system, right? So they want us to come back and take our Western philosophy and take our Western knowledge to help them organize and industrialize the natural resources that they have right there at home.
That's so great because, and you said it earlier, and I just want to go back to it. You talked about how innovative they are with their cell phones. They pay their bills with cell phones. They exchange money. They pay off their light bills. They pay off their, obviously their phone bills. And all of that is now digitized in a way so that they don't use banks the way that we use banks. They do everything on their cell phone. So there's a real opportunity for financing small businesses, and these micro businesses are being able to be funded much differently. They don't have to go to a bank, so they money exchanges and so on and so forth. So it's a real interesting concept, and you're right. Capitalism, as we've known it and developed it, is an expertise. And again, great that you're bringing it out. I hope our listeners really are hearing that we've got some advantages. Maybe you don't have a business yet, but you can hear one. You can have a conversation with some folks over in different parts of the world and begin to find out what is it that they like, what is it that they need, and supply that. Yeah. And begin to connect that way. Oh, yeah, I have this. You need that? I can get you that. Oh, I need this. Do you have that? Can you get me that? And so you begin to have that whole conversation of trade.
Yes. Now, Latoya, how can everybody reach you if they need to? Because this is such an interesting conversation. I know people would want to be able to talk to you further about it if they can. How can that happen?
Yeah, so awesome. So I would give you my website, but it is being rebranded, in the process of being rebranded, but you can definitely check me out on social media. I'm on Instagram, Latoya Benjamin _, Facebook, Latoya Benjamin, also on LinkedIn, under the name Latoya Benjamin. So social media is a new business card. So
you could say that again.
Send me a follow. I'll follow you back. And this is a great discussion.
Yeah. Oh, Glenn, what's going on here in Southeast Jamaica, Queens? Anything coming up? Any events that we need to talk about?
Well, we're going to be reinstating the Air Train Jazz Festival. We've gotten the okay from Port Authority, so it's just a matter of either this week or the following week we'll have some action going on there. Also, JFK Redevelopment is I got some job internships that are happening, and if you contact me, there Metro North has got some job opportunities as well. So there are a lot of things that are cooking right now. People are looking for able-bodied people to work. Was it retirement economy they said, or that a lot of people are leaving the workforce, but yet there's still lots and
Great
lots of
reputation.
opportunity. Exactly. So it's an opportunity for us as a group, as a people, to really look to see what is it that we want to do next. Let's dream big now. Now's the time to really look and dream big. What is it that if nothing stood in your way, what is it that you want to do? And let's look at doing it, because the technology is putting us out way beyond we could ever imagine. So let's keep expanding our vision for what's possible and what we can do in this economic environment.
Yes. Well, everybody, you've been listening to Our World, Our World Power Show. Please don't forget to follow us on our social media. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Our World Media #1, and follow us on Instagram at Our World Media.
And I'd like to thank Latoya Benjamin for being our special guest today. It's just been a pleasure. We look forward to future engagements in the conversation of economic development, because I think it's such a rich conversation and so many people can get benefit from it. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for being our guest. It was wonderful speaking with you, Latoya.
Thank you guys for having me. And if I could do just a quick acknowledgement of events that's taking place in our community
Sure.
with other
Please do.
entrepreneurs. We have a phenomenal business owner, Miss Alicia Davis. She just actually opened up a commercial space right here in our district in the heart of Southeast Queens, more going towards the Five Towns area. And there's actually going to be a brunch taking place on April 24th between 2 to 5 p.m. And it's called the Lux Library. It's a phenomenal upscale space. It's an event hall. I just visited there and had a great conversation with her the other day. So please support our local businesses, tap into the commercial space, and our entrepreneurs. They're doing some amazing things. Bring your children, bring your businesses, and join as a member.
Okay, thank you. That sounds like a wonderful plan. Glenn, you have anything else you want to add before we say
sayonara?
Yeah.
No, it's been a great conversation, and of course, this is the area I love, economic development. So let's keep looking. Let's keep building bridges to make things happen to our overseas communities that look like us.
All right, this has been Lady Pauline and my co-host, Mr. Glenn Greenwich. Catch you all next week, same time, same place. Take care, guys.